It's that time of the week. Yes, this week's Cult Movie Show, your weekly look at cult movies. Please welcome your hosts, Warren and Velvet.
Yes, welcome to another podcast of the Cult Movie Show, number 64. I got it right. And I am, of course, Warren, and with me, as always, is the co-host with the mostest. I didn't even say that correctly. Never mind, it's Velvet. How are you, Velvet?
But we all knew what you meant. I am doing good. I didn't see as many movies as I wanted to this week. I'm disappointed, but I saw great stuff, lots of crazy stuff going on in the world of movies. But in the spirit of being spoiler-free, I will not talk about Avengers Infinity. I'll wait a couple more months before I even bring it up. But in the meantime, I've been getting caught up on Westworld. Now they have the new season out, and I've been checking out the new episodes, and it is just a wild, non-linear show. Like, the first season blows your mind. Yeah. Oh, have you finally started watching this? Have you finally started watching
No. I'm sort of into the first season. I'm still,
okay.
Yeah, I'm miles behind.
Okay, then no spoilers. Okay, so I cannot even talk about current movies at all this week, people, because there's so much going on. We're going to keep it a spoil-free zone for you, but we're going to spoil the shit out of these movies that we are reviewing for you today because they are not currently in the theaters.
Correct. But I will just ask you though, Velvet, did you like the latest Avengers movie?
I did. It's a very long movie. It's almost 3 hours, and I have to admit it felt like a 2-hour movie. It was just so action-packed. The pacing was extremely good. It was just always moving full steam ahead. I never one time found myself going, oh God, when is this going to end? Oh God, this is too long. I found the pacing to be particularly good for such a long film. And also I found it very well written for people like me who have not seen all of the movies. The movie literally incorporates 19 movies, 19 Marvel films.
Is there 19 films in this whole thing? Jesus Christ.
Yes. And so for me, for example, I've not seen the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I haven't seen either of them. I only know bits and pieces and just random pop culture because everybody loves the little tree person Groot. So, I mean, and then I've only seen two of the Captain Americas. I've seen like one of the actual Avengers. Like, I've not seen them all. And even I was able to follow along. There were a couple moments where I'm kind of like, I wonder what that meant. I wonder who that is. But it ends up really kind of just, you may not know everything 100%, but you will not be lost. You will know what's going on. So even if you've not seen every single movie, if you like action hero movies, you will like this movie. Well, you may not like this movie, actually, but I'll just say it'll keep you engaged the entire, 2 hours, 46 minutes, I believe.
Okay.
And yes, and definitely stick around for that post-credit sequence, because it's mandatory now with Marvel films, because it's quite surprising. I thought it would be something uplifting, and it's just like, yikes. The whole movie leaves you on a cliffhanger. It's part one of, a two-part, epic. So next year, a year from now, they're going to release the sequel to this, and we're going to finally get our conclusion, and hopefully we'll get some happy endings. But yeah, it was intense.
I've got to admit, I mean, I don't mind Marvel and DC, what they're producing. I kind of whinge about it, complain about it a little bit, but then I still watch it. So I should, but I have to admit, the one that has totally lost me is the Transformers franchise.
Big time. I stopped watching that after the one. I stopped that franchise after the second one. It lost me completely already then.
Well, you also know how I feel about Michael Bay. It's just like I cannot stand the stuff he puts out. It's just It's just so bad.
It's like more explosions, more explosions.
More explosions, more girls with midriff and hot pants, more American flags, you know. It's just like, oh my God, it's just, I can't cope with it. And battle scenes which are so intertwined and cut in such a way, you have no fucking idea what is going on and who is who.
A friend of mine that actually collects like action figures, like old school, 80s Saturday morning cartoons, action figures. And he actually has a business where he buys and trades and sells collectible figures. So he's a big Transformers fan way back from, the cartoon and the original series. And his main complaint about the current film franchise for the Transformers is, this is his quote, "They're fucking ugly." He says they're just so dark. There's no color. Just these ugly robots running around. They don't look like what they're supposed to be in the cartoon. It's basically a space, alien type that obviously is slightly robotic, but in the film they're just straight up ugly robots. They look like scrap metal to him. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
And, well, the other thing too is in the fourth movie, where they changed the cast lineup kind of considerably. And what was it, Mark Wahlberg, sort of stepped in. The whole point, the other thing too is that in that movie, I think I might have mentioned this before, his daughter's meant to be 16, I think, and her boyfriend is 25.
What?
It's like, or something. It's
almost
like
10 years older.
It's like, is this kind of like? Oh, anyway.
That's weird. Wow. I totally missed that because I haven't seen it, so I didn't even know. But I like Mark Wahlberg, but even him being in that movie was not enough for me to actually go see it. I'm just like, nope, I'm done with that franchise. Done with Transformers.
No, and the fifth one, even what is it? Anthony Hopkins couldn't quite save the.
Oh God, he was in it. Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Well, he's getting old now. It's a bit like he probably doesn't care. It's like, oh, you're going to pay me that? Yeah, all right, I'll do it.
You know what? I'm not mad at him for that. I think that's the way to do it. You only live once, unless you're James Bond, and you only live twice. But anyways.
No, look, I agree. I mean, I agree with that comment. That famous British actor, who once said, "Acting is a job, and there are far too many people in Hollywood who have forgotten that." And I think that's kind of real. It is a job.
Yeah.
You've got to take the good with the bad. Not everything you make is going to be an Academy Award-winning masterpiece.
No.
You're going to make some kind of ordinary films as well. It's work. You take the good with the bad,
Exactly. And you're not getting any job offers. Like, we all assume that every actor has their pick of scripts, and that's not the truth. Like, no matter how big you are, there's a lull in your career, and you need to work for whatever reason, whether it's for money or just because you want to work or because you don't want people to forget about you and you need to be in the limelight and have a movie out in the theaters. Sometimes you have nothing but shitty scripts being offered to you. So you pick the least shitty one, so you're working.
Well, but it's like in any career. I mean, you even look at let's say a salesperson for, I don't know, an engineering company or something, right? Every now and again, they do these amazing jobs where they build skyscrapers and they do whatever. But sometimes, they're just going around selling jobs for a couple of $1,000, which is not very interesting. But every now and again comes a huge project, which they then stand back after a couple of years and go, holy crap, I was part of that, right? But then the rest of their work is just, mundane. So it's like, it's the same in any career. This idea that everything has to be spectacular. Yeah. I just wonder sometimes we've just got a little bit too head crazy, with our expectations. I don't know. Anyway, we shouldn't be talking about that. We should be talking about cult movies. But before we do, I just have to say it is, of course, Saturday. And Saturday night, US time, And but starting this week, it's Eurovision week. Yes, I know that doesn't mean a lot to North American listeners, but to our European and Australian listeners, and also Chinese who are starting to watch Eurovision in big numbers now, it is my Christmas, Easter, and birthday rolled into one.
Look at that.
I am going to be very excited, and I just want to say, go Jessica Melboy, do Australia proud. I know you're not going to win, but still give it your best shot.
Awesome.
I think the chances of an Australian winning are just kind of ludicrous. I don't think it will ever happen. But anyway, so we're here to talk about some films, aren't we? And,
yes, we are.
So we've got 3 today, and is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. And I have to admit, this was a film I hadn't actually seen. And even though it's not exactly a new film, it's from 2010, but everyone has always been saying, have you seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil? Have you seen Tucker and Dale versus Evil? And I had to keep saying, no, I haven't. And, they just kept giving me this stupid look, like, why haven't you seen it yet? So anyway, finally watched it, and I must admit, Velvet, I really liked it. I really liked the concept of it. It's a bit gory, but it's very funny.
Yes.
So what is this movie about? Okay, well, basically we have our 2, I don't know if you want to call them heroes, Tucker and Dale, and they're redneck hicks. Is that...
Or we would say they're hillbillies.
Or
hillbillies. On the
hillbillies.
East Coast, up in the mountains, up in the forest, so they're hillbillies.
Hillbillies, okay. Pardon I might get this wrong. I probably just insulted a whole heap of people with that. Is that
I mean, hillbillies is also not very nice. I mean, redneck and hillbilly is rather derogatory, but it's all in good fun. Oh, yeah, it's all in good fun and good humor here. So rednecks would call hillbillies, and hillbillies would call rednecks. So.
Okay, just like...
But it's not like derogatory as in cuss word, but it's like, obviously, it's either way you say it, it infers that this person is of low intelligence and possibly inbred.
Okay. My apologies to everybody listening. I
no
didn't
need to
know
apologize.
that. I
no
didn't
need
know
to
that.
Apologize.
Just like growing up in Australia, we have a term which is called bogan, which means a similar type of thing. However, it's not an insult because people who, let's say, are viewed as bogan or whatever, have taken the word and wear it as a badge of honour. They're very proud of it. It's a bit like there used to be a word in Australia called wog, which used to be an absolute insult to someone of Mediterranean descent. But now it's a badge of honour, and it's worn as honour, and people actually say, I'm a wog, and I'm proud of it, right? So, pardon me, I do apologise for that. That's
no need to apologise at all. So, yeah, just hillbillies. Basically, the movie, I believe, is even supposed to take place in West Virginia, which is like the poster child of hillbillyism.
Right. So
even to this day, there's a very strong coal mining culture, so there's a lot that goes along with that. But yeah, Appalachian Mountains, lots of woods, lots of nature, a lot of hunting. A lot of people that are stereotypically thought of as not very intelligent.
Okay.
And there may be some truth to that, who knows?
So anyway, Tucker and Dale are, let's say, of rural extraction, and they will meet up with a group of college students on I gather it's meant to be the Memorial Day weekend, who are on a camping trip, and they will run into each other in a what do you call it, like a gas station, general store, some such thing, and what will start is a series of misunderstandings that will get out of control. Now, our college students basically look at them and think that they've just walked onto the set of The Hills Run Red or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And that, of course,
or the hills have eyes.
Oh, yes, or the hills have eyes. And this is, of course, the premise of the whole film. But, of course, Tucker and Dale are not like that at all. They're just a couple of country boys who have bought this house in the middle of nowhere, and it's their dream because they now have a holiday home. They see themselves as being successful because they now have a second home. Well, anyway, our college students don't quite see it that way. Now, they all, of course, head off. Tucker and Dale head off to their holiday home, which turns out to be the site 20 years ago of a Texas Chainsaw type incident, but they're unaware of this. And it's probably the reason why they've got the house so cheap. And, of course, inside, it looks a bit like the house from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But they, of course, don't realise that. They just think that, this house must have been owned by biologists or scientists or some such thing. Now, during all of this, just pardon me for a second, my throat's still a little bit sore, pardon the coffee. Our college students will go for a skinny dip in the pond, which, of course, as all college students do. And one of our main characters, she will fall off a rock, hit her head, and, of course, Tucker and Dale will scoop her out of the water, save her life, put her in the boat, and start yelling to the other college students that, hey, we've got your girl, we've got your girl. Well, of course, here starts the misunderstandings again. They think that she has been kidnapped by these people. So they will then try to hunt down these Tucker and Dale in their house to try to rescue their friend who they think is, about to be cut in half with a chainsaw. Now, in doing so, more and more and more misunderstandings will come from this. And our college students will, one by one, accidentally kill themselves trying to kill Tucker and Dale. And it is absolutely hilarious. Poor Tucker and Dale have no idea what's going on as these people accidentally kill themselves around them. And they, in fact, actually think that they've stumbled across a suicide cult which has come to the forest to kill themselves. Well, this will go on and on and on and on until there's barely anybody left, and then there'll be the end showdown. What did you think, Velvet? Because I think it's a really interesting, if you want to call it, I don't know if you call it a goofy comedy, a dark comedy, a horror comedy. I'm not too sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I put it in that horror comedy. One obviously leans more heavy comedy, which oftentimes that's usually the balance. Either a horror comedy is very funny and not very scary, or it's very scary and it has a little bit of humor. This one's very funny, but also more on the gory side, because oftentimes if it's very funny, the gore is not very good. And this one has a lot of great accidental death scenarios that, as you mentioned, are quite gory. One of my favorite ones is when one of the college students falls into a wood chipper, and of course he dies. But when this happens, miraculously, none of the friends see him fall in. They only see, I forget which one's Tucker and which one's Dale, but either Tucker or Dale.
It was Tucker.
Tucker,
yeah.
Thank you. Tucker is trying to pull this poor guy out of the wood chipper, but of course it's a lost cause. The dude's already dead. So all they see is this guy holding onto their friend's legs while he's getting mauled to death by this wood chipper. And so all the friends think that Tucker has murdered their friend with a wood chipper. And just constantly scenarios like this play out in the movie where Tucker and Dale are just in the wrong place at the wrong time when these people die. And all the friends always think that Tucker and Dale are killing all the friends off. But they're just these horrible accidents.
Yes. I mean, we see. Actually, sorry, it wasn't Tucker at the wood chip. It was Dale. Sorry,
Dale. Thank you. I've forgotten which is which.
Yeah. So sorry, my mistake. I just quickly looked it up. That's my bad. Yes, but these college students are so bad at trying to kill these people who were just minding their own business, really. That they will try to leap at them, with a sharpened stick and then fall into a wood chipper. They will leap at them with a sharpened stick and then land on their own sharpened stick. They will they will try to use a gun that they find to try to shoot them and end up shooting themselves. It is,
oh my God.
It is quite funny, and poor old Tucker and Dale just have no idea what's going on. It's just beyond them to understand why are these guys killing themselves, and they just can't come to terms with it.
It's just, I was like you, honestly. I ended up watching this movie because I kept hearing people I knew talk about it, and they're like, oh, you gotta watch it, you gotta watch it, you gotta watch it. And finally I watched it, and I was like, oh my God, I did have to watch this, because it's just that unique blend of comedy and horror. We got these graphic, gross deaths, and although all these poor people are dying, you're laughing because it's just so absurd and so funny and so unfortunate. And they just really go crazy with the blood in this movie. Like, there's just a ton of blood splatter. Like, even when the one guy falls into the wood chipper, a girl is standing off who knows how far away, like way far away, hiding behind a tree.
Like 200 meters away.
Yeah, and like a gallon of blood like just squirts all over her face and chest, and you're like, wait, how is that even possible?
I know.
So just over the top, really funny. I really like the two actors who play Tucker and Dale. We have Taylor Labine. Taylor Labine and Alan Tudyk, which you may not know the names, but if you see them, you've definitely seen the movies before. Tyler Labine, the one that plays Dale, was actually in a movie that I walked out of last week. I cannot remember the last time I walked out of a movie in the movie theater. It was Super Troopers 2. Super Troopers 2.
Yeah, Super Troopers 2.
It was so bad. It was so stupid, so irritatingly annoying. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I left with half an hour to spare. I'm like, I'm out. I can't take it anymore.
But did you
I was in physical pain. I was in physical pain when I was groaning the entire movie. I was sighing and groaning the entire movie. My chest was sore from sighing and groaning.
But did you like Super Troopers, though, the original?
I never saw the first one, so that was my own fault. I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought it was going to be a bad movie anyways, but I didn't think it would be so bad that I was going to walk out, like, just be, like, in physical pain. Like, they had a scene where they have a is that his name? Rob Lowe, excuse me. Rob Lowe is playing a Canadian, so he's got, like, the goofy Canadian accent. And they show a man with his flaccid penis hanging out, and Rob Lowe uses it as a punching bag. They graphically show this, and I'm just like, oh, God, I can't take it anymore.
That sounds like them. That sounds like them,
yeah. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I can't take it anymore. But anyways, we're talking about Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but that was just my quick review of Super Troopers 2. Completely miss it. Don't even rent it. No, you know what? If you smoke marijuana...
I was looking forward to it, actually.
If you are drunk or high, you will like this movie. You cannot watch it sober. This movie was never meant to be watched sober. You cannot sit there with a Diet Coke and popcorn. You need a glass of alcohol and some illicit substance to enjoy this movie.
I shall take that on board. I shall take
not
that
watch
on board.
It sober. I think if I had been drinking, I would have loved it. But no, sober, do not watch Super Troopers 2. Don't do it sober.
Okay. Well, I have to admit, a lot of that stuff, I've forgotten the guys. It's a comedy sort of group, and I've forgotten what they call themselves. Because it's always so and so present, and I've kind of forgotten. It's always the same guys who are in it. But anyway.
It was painful. And there's so many famous people in it. It was shocking. I was like, wow, okay. I was like, this must be a decent movie because there's all these stars in it. But no, it fucking sucked.
Well, a lot of people have been looking forward to it because Super Troopers is kind of it's a bit of a cult movie, actually. Super Troopers.
You know, maybe we'll have to do the first one then. And I'm going to watch it not sober.
Right.
I'm going to watch it not sober.
It's probably the best way to watch something that these guys have done, I must admit. But anyway.
Taylor Labine, the one that plays Dale in the movie we're reviewing today, he's in Super Troopers 2, and he plays a French Canadian. So the whole movie, they're doing that French Canadian accent. room.
Yeah.
And it's like, after like 15 minutes of that, you're just like, okay, this is really eating as fuck now. Like, this is so annoying. Okay. But love Tyler Labine. Happy to see him. Was not happy to see him in that movie. But I'm happy to see him in Tucker and Dale, because I think Tucker and Dale, the characters they're just so relatable, and they're so sweet, and they're so innocent. And you can tell they just want to help people and be nice and, treat people how they want to be treated. So you feel bad for them that this group of college kids thinks that they're like murderers.
Well, that's right. I mean, the whole film plays with that idea of not only misunderstandings and the lunacy of all of that, but it also plays with the idea that, which is so real, in the world, which is we hate what
Prejudice.
we hate what we don't understand.
Yes.
So these people are from, rural America, so therefore they must be somehow subhuman murderers or sick psycho, sort of thing. And of course our people from rural America don't understand, the prejudices of these college students, because they've never associated with college students, because they've never left their little town.
No.
So it's got a real point actually to it in what it says, but then carries it out in such a funny way. I mean, it really is. It is hilarious. I must admit.
Yeah, and there's always just that. Even when they're trying to be friendly and helpful, they always come off the wrong way. For example, we have Dale. He's trying to just approach the college girl and have a conversation with her. But what's he do? He walks over holding a scythe,
Yes.
like the Grim Reaper style, holding it over his head, walks over to her, and she's already like, oh God, is he going to kill me? And he's so nervous talking to her because she's so pretty, and he, wants to talk to her. Then instead of talking, he just starts laughing nervously while he's holding this potentially deadly weapon. So always making the wrong impression unintentionally, and it just never works out in his favor, or does it until the very end of the movie when things definitely take a turn.
That's the thing. Allison is the character who is that their friends think has been kidnapped, but of course they're actually only trying to look after her until she recovers. And they're desperately trying to send messages to the college students to let them know that your friend is in our house, please come and get her. But of course, every time they send a message, the college students read it as the wrong way. It's like, we've got your friend. And they just try to say, well, we've got your friend.
And then we have poor Dale. This is also one of my favorite scenes when that poor guy is running around. Tucker is he gets stung by a bunch of bees, and he has a chainsaw, and he's running with a chainsaw, and his face is starting to deform from all the fucking bee stings, and he can't talk, his tongue's getting all swollen, and he's just screaming, and he's basically yelling, and he's running with this chainsaw, and all the college kids are like, oh my God, he's coming after us,
I know,
he's gonna kill us. And it's no, he's just trying to get away from the fucking bees.
As you watch it, they're running, and he's running after the college student, and he's got the chainsaw in the air and everything like that. But then he passes the college student, and he's in front of the college student. It's so obvious he's just trying to run away from the bees, but no, they don't see it that way. It's very funny, but even Allison, who's played by Katrina Bowden, Bowden or Bowden? I suppose it depends where you were born.
I think we would probably say Bowden, but you'd have to ask her what she prefers.
Yes. And anyway, so she wakes up in the in the house, of course, and they come in and try to serve her breakfast. They've gone to all this trouble to make her breakfast. And she starts screaming, no, no, no. And he turns around and sort of says, gee, I didn't know you hated pancakes that much. I'll make you something else.
So it's just really well written. The humor in this is very funny. The comedic timing of the actors, they have great chemistry. Just like no matter, and you pointed it out with Tucker running away with the chainsaw, and he actually runs past the college students. So even when it's obvious that Dale and Tucker do not want to hurt this group of kids, they just don't get it. There's even a scene where one of the college students manages to get a hold of a gun, and he's trying to shoot Tucker and Dale. And Dale goes, "You got to take the safety off."
Yes.
It's like, wait, you almost got yourself killed.
I know. No. And there is also, I mean, there's a great scene too where Allison, of course, he's the only one who understands what's going on. So Allison represents us, so the audience. She knows that both sides have just totally misunderstood what's going on. So she finally tries to bring them together to talk to each other about what's going on. But what's really interesting is one of her then college friends sort of says, "Oh, I've read about this. You've got Stockholm syndrome." And it's like, no, they're just good guys. They're not trying to hurt you. No, you've got Stockholm syndrome. It's whatever happens, they will not believe that Tucker and Dale are not psycho murderers.
Exactly. But what they are is they are heroic when given the chance, because it was called Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So the whole movie, you're like, okay, this is all just a misunderstanding. It's very funny. It's unfortunate that people are dying because of these misunderstandings, but that is not Tucker nor Dale's fault. But then what happens is one of the surviving college students becomes horribly disfigured and goes crazy, and he actually becomes a murderer.
Yes.
And this is when Tucker and Dale actually have to come face to face with him, no pun intended, and they actually are in the face of true evil.
That is correct, because we do have one of them who will in fact turn pure evil, and there's a bit of a twist to the story in that, which we won't give away. Because this film is on Netflix, it's readily available, so I don't think we'll give away the little twist. I think we'll let that go. But it's an interesting part of the story anyway. That maybe I would just say maybe not these college students maybe don't truly understand their family past. Let's just put it that way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also what makes this movie, because the whole time it's funny, and you're kind of expecting it to just become like, oh, sorry for all the misunderstanding. Those of you who have survived, we're all cool now, right? But then there is that twist in the story, and it does build tension, and it becomes a completely different movie, still with laughs and horror, but now we got a little bit of drama added to it. So that's where you kind of can go, wow, this is a little more than just a comedic horror film. There's a little bit more going on to this. So, great film.
Oh, yeah. No, look, I think it's a fantastic film. The ending as well is very good. It's very clever, and it does finish on quite a funny little note, put it that way. I think it does. Sorry, my voice is going, Velvet. Sorry. I've still got this bit of a bug in my throat. I loved it. I just thought it was a fantastic little flick.
I really like this movie. This is really just kind of a hidden gem on Netflix. It's been on there for a long time. It's one of those movies that I feel like it's been on there for years, and if it's been on your queue and you're like, I'm going to watch that someday, make it this weekend. This is just a really fun movie. You're going to watch it and be like, oh man, I wish I'd watched this sooner.
Yeah.
Tell all your friends about it. They're going to love it. It's just such a it's really a rather unique movie. I love the whole premise of just, appearances aren't always what they seem, and, don't judge a book by its cover. But then there's, horror, but not scary horror. Maybe there's a couple of almost jump scares, but not really scary. But there is, a good amount of gore, but not excessive, not Saw style gore.
No,
more implied with a lot of blood splashing.
and even the gore is comically done.
Yes, it is. It's not going to leave you traumatized.
No.
But and it's very funny. The movie's very funny.
As in when they actually are trying to clean up the deaths and they are trying to get the body out of the wood chipper. Yes, it's gory, but it's very funny at the same time. Talking about, because as they're trying to pull a body out of the wood chipper, I can't remember which one, whether it was Dale or Tucker, and he sort of basically just sort of says, "Oh, I hope I get my deposit back on this."
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because they've obviously rented the wood chipper, for the weekend.
Yeah, they just want to fix up this house that they've, bought together, going to be their vacation house. And it's just such a great movie.
Yes, yeah.
It's an underdog story. I think we've kind of mentioned that. If you love underdog stories, you've definitely got Tucker being the underdog, or Dale. I'm sorry, I don't know why we cannot remember who's who in this movie.
Yes.
They're kind of interchangeable. They're both kind of the same character. It's only their looks that make them separate. Because they're both not too smart, but they're very sweet and have good hearts. And when they have to step up and help people, they're willing to do that. So
yes. It's look, it's a great little film. So have we got anything else to add to Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
Unfortunately, there's not anything else I can say without completely spoiling the ending and the twist. And since we do really want people to check this one out, I'm going to keep it spoiler-free for the ending on this one. But you're not going to see it coming, people. It's worth checking out. You're going to love it.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. No, I think most definitely. All right, well, we should probably rate it.
Right on. Okay. So out of a possible Eric Roberts, 1 to 5, 1 being this movie is horrible, don't watch it, and 5 being this is an amazing masterpiece, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 4, because maybe there's some predictable stuff. Maybe some of you will see it coming, but it's so highly entertaining that, 4 out of 5 Erics.
Okay. I actually think that for the type of movie it is, sort of a send-up of, sort of those of Texas Chainsaw, and just viewing it from a totally different perspective, and then doing it as a comedy, but not in that scary movie style, but in something that's a little bit more complicated and you've got to think about, that actually took a bit of effort to write. I'm going to give it 5. I reckon it's brilliant.
Right on. Wow. I'm glad you liked it that much.
Oh, yeah. I really
awesome.
enjoyed it.
Awesome.
I thought it was a really clever, thought-out little film.
And it actually is very well shot. I mean, this is a very high production value. It's a nice-looking movie.
Yeah. No, most definitely. All right, we're just going to take a quick break because I've got to cough my lungs up. Sorry, but
no.
And we will be right back with You Know What.
Okay.
It's time to get excited, short film fans. It's mini movie review time.
It most definitely is. And what little gem have you found for us this week, Velvet?
All right, this movie is called, or mini movie I should say, is called Woodhouse. It is from 2013. It's just a little under 9 minutes long. And it starts off with, first off, I love that this has narration. It's very rare that we see a mini movie that has narration. And I think that really adds an interesting layer of, to this story. But we've got a little girl that decides to go on an adventure in the woods. And she reports that she saw a monster. And of course, she comes home safe and sound. Nobody believes her. It makes the local newspaper. And one man reads the story and he becomes obsessed with it. And it's just this kind of slice of life story where you just take a story that you see in the newspaper. And then what if we just went right in with a bird's view of how that story affects or doesn't affect other people? And the conversations it sparks, the situations that are going on around it or not around it, or just how it comes up in passing conversation and doesn't affect another person. Really, it's hard to say what this little mini movie's about. You kind of have to see it to experience it on your own. But we have the man that becomes obsessed with this story. Did the little girl see a strange creature in the woods? He's going to set off to find it by himself. Does he find it? Is it a hoax? Happens. I don't know. What did you think of this mini movie?
I thought it was interesting. Wasn't 100% sure what to make of it. I mean, it definitely plays with that idea where you have an event or a story which suddenly becomes something very different many years later on. So in this case, we have a story of a young child who went into like the woods sort of thing, and then basically sort of thought that she was being watched by something. But from that, this story blows into the fact that there's some sort of mythical, unknown creature living in the woods. And so it's interesting how, one event sparks to another event, and so in the end, you have literally a situation where a young child thinks of something, and then suddenly down the track, that becomes Bigfoot.
Right.
And so it's a kind of an interesting little movie, the way it sort of works with that. But then, of course, it does also play with the idea that, well, is it real? Isn't it real? Is there a creature? Isn't there a creature? Was this just the imagination of a child? Also, how some people become obsessed with, I suppose, what we would refer to these days as conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And become convinced of certain things, even though there is zero evidence, behind it.
Right.
Exactly. It also plays with the idea that people will believe things even without any research on the subjects. Like, for instance, our man who becomes obsessed never tries to track down the family of the little girl. He never tries to speak to her. It just becomes his own personal obsession. So it's a very interesting film. It's a very interesting film, I suppose, in many ways on human nature. It also deals with the idea that if somebody has an idea which is a little bit off left field, shall we say, the immediate response of the mainstream is to attack the person. Not the idea, but the person.
Yes.
It's an interesting little film. It is an interesting little film, yeah.
And also, if you watch this movie more than once, you're going to see something different every time. This is definitely one of those mini movies that, if you have spare moment here and there, you should definitely just watch it again, because you're going to get something different out of it each time. There may be just a little something you didn't notice in the background, or the way somebody's facial tick moves, that type of thing. Oh, and I wanted to say before I forget, the character we were mentioning that becomes obsessed with this, it's interesting that part of the obsession seemed to be that this gave his boring life some excitement. It seemed to give him some weird sense of purpose, that it just awoke a sense of purpose in him, that he wanted to try to hunt down whatever it was that was in the woods. So, I mean, that's also an interesting part of human nature, because the guy had sound like a pretty boring life, to be honest. And yeah, for some reason, this little story kind of woke him up a little bit. Like, it's not really probably not the most honorable purpose to pursue, but that's just, the way it worked out for him.
Well, it's also interesting, too, that his wife wants him to find a new job because she wants him to be good at something, to be interested in something, to follow some sort of passion, but just not the concept of a monster in a local park.
Right.
She wants that to be more career-driven or something along these ideas, not this conspiracy sort of thing. So, where he has found his passion, but it's not a normal passion. It's a passion which will never really lead anywhere unless he's proven right. And with all of these conspiracy theories, well, let's face it, with the exception of one or two, which are not really they're not real conspiracy theories. They tend to be more situations where governments lied or something like that. Conspiracy theories are never proved correct. You know, they never are. That's why they're conspiracy theories. They stay out there forever, you know.
Right.
And so his passion will go on for the rest of his life, but he'll never achieve his goal.
But then at the end of the short, we see a random woman walking in the woods. I think she sees something, or does she?
Or does she?
So,
that's the thing,
or does she? So this movie, honestly, this mini movie, it's beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to listen to. I love the narration. It is really hard to explain. It's definitely one of those I think you need to watch and gain your own perspective. So it's kind of hard for me to really speak on it because it's one of those rare ones where I'm kind of like, and it's not strange visually. It's not like CGI or special effects or anything. It's literally like it's like a slice of life. Almost plotless to a point. Like there is that little bit of plot, but there's no exact build up. There's no climax and then, fade out. I mean, it even kind of ends on a climax. Just like, did something happen or didn't it? Like, so
yes.
It's definitely worth checking out. Worth checking out. It's different from the majority of the mini movies that I've seen. It just has a unique style to it that I can't quite put my finger on.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it's just one you just need to see for yourself. You know, a bit hard to explain.
It is
best just to watch it for yourself. Find 8 minutes and watch it.
Exactly. So if you guys want to watch it, I have already tweeted the link on our Twitter at Cult Movie Show. And again, the short film is called Wood House, as in not steel, not rubber, not plastic, but wood, like trees. Wood House, all one word. This mini movie was directed by Fred Rosen for, I believe that was Blink Productions. And go ahead and check it out and tell them Cult Movie Show sent you.
Most definitely. All right. Well, we're just going to take a quick musical break and we will be back with our second movie for the podcast. And, it's a fun one. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was Cerebro, something like that. I can never get the Russian names right. From Russia with Mama Lover. And if you haven't seen, you can YouTube it. It is the coolest little film clip. It's just the three chicks who are in the band, and they're just in the car, two in the front seat, one in the middle back seat, and they're just driving around the streets of Moscow singing to their own song. It sounds so simplistic with a dash cam on filming them, but it's just really cool. It's just, I don't know, I just really like it. Anyway, so our second offering. Now, if I say the word Roger Corman, you know what you're going to get, don't you? And this is a Roger Corman offering from 1957, Attack of the Crab Monsters. And it is an interesting film with the craziest premise I think I have ever seen in a B-grade monster flick, which we will get to in just a second. So, our story basically starts that there is an island somewhere in the Pacific Ocean which has been affected very badly from radioactive fallout from the American Bikini Atoll nuclear tests. And so a group of scientists are sent there, and they all vanish without a trace.
Oh, no.
And so they send a second team to the island to, one, continue their work, but also find out what happened to the first team. Well, when they arrive, they find that basically, apart from plants and crabs, there's nothing else really alive on the island. No insects, no reptiles, no birds, nothing. And so they find this a little bit strange. They then also find that the island seems to be kind of almost very... well, it's having earthquakes all the time. And... which is making the island a little bit dangerous, with huge craters opening up, left, right, and centre. And the island shape keeps changing from day to day because of all of these, sort of earthquakes. They then find that they're hearing voices of the past expedition. So they think that they're alive. I have no idea, it's like you hear someone's voice when you're inside a house and you walk 500 metres away, you still haven't found them. You would think there might be something suspicious, but no, they go to try to hunt down these people. Well, anyway, a few of them then start to disappear themselves, and suddenly the remains of the crew start to hear their voices as well. And they cannot work out what's going on until they suddenly are attacked by a giant crab. Now, what they then find after this, apart from the fact that there are giant crabs living on this island, which of course have been created by radiation, they then find that these crabs are somehow communicating with them through the voices of the dead people they've just eaten. Which, of course, then will mean that one of our crabs will speak with a French accent, which does make the movie kind of very funny, even though it's not meant to be. But we will then find that our crabs, because they have absorbed the knowledge of the people that they've eaten, now have a plan that they're going to take over the world. So it's not just that they're trying to kill the people on the island, they're also now have this concept of world domination. And, of course, our scientists have to try to stop the giant crab. It's an amazing movie. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. What did you think, Velvet?
This movie, okay, so if you didn't know what you were into, if you didn't know the title of the movie... going in, like, halfway into the movie, you have no idea what's going on. I mean, and you still don't know what's going on. And then even when they finally tell you what's going on, it's still like, wait, what? Wait, how does that work? There's a scene where there is a talking gun. Yes, people, a firearm. There's a gun on a table, and all of a sudden you hear this ghostly voice, and it's like, yes, it's the gun on the table. Anywhere there is no, I can conduct my voice. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
Like, wait, how does that work?
I know.
They do a very nice slow reveal of our creatures. So even though you know from the title of the movie what you're getting into, they still do a very slow reveal. So you're not really sure what's happening because people keep disappearing. People keep screaming, then they disappear. Then all of a sudden there's a ghostly voice, and every once in a while you'll see like a ginormous like crab claw. But you're still like, wait, I still don't know what's going on though.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden there's a giant crab, and I'm just like, I have no idea what's going on, but this is so funny. I was just like, and I was shocked to see that this was directed by Roger Corman, because I was like, wow, the only thing that would make this movie any better is if we could see some 1957 boobs, but we know that's not going to happen in this movie. So
Not 1957. No, we sort of had to wait. We had to wait till the 70s, I think, before we started to get that. But
definitely.
It's look, it's just, it starts off and it's your typical creature feature. You know, people start to disappear. We have strange voices. Is it spiritual? Is it paranormal? Like, we don't quite know what's going on. We then see that there are giant crabs revealed. Here's our giant creature, slowly revealed just through the claw. And so you sort of think, oh, okay, it's just going to be your standard B-grade creature feature. But then we find we've got these crabs who can speak, psychically through metal and have a plan of world domination. Who the fuck came up with a story for this?
I don't know how that works at all. So, and evidently, like you said, so the crabs were like killing people, but they were eating their brains, and that's how they absorbed their knowledge and the ability to speak. But I don't know how radiation makes you able to conduct your voice over metal objects. I just don't understand. So this movie has a ton of pseudo-science in it that you're just like, wow, this is beyond science fiction. This is straight up pseudo-science. It makes no sense. But they make it sound very scientific, almost as if it could actually be plausible in the realm of this movie. But yeah, it makes no sense.
And it's also why, I mean, I can understand maybe why scientists would go to the island and they would maybe have some dynamite. Maybe they needed to blow away a piece of rock, or I can kind of understand that. But why do they have hand grenades? Military hand grenades. I mean,
a lot of them too.
What scientist travels to an island with hand grenades? I mean,
yeah, they're like, how many you got? Oh, I got 2 left. Oh, I got 3. I'm like, what? You guys running around with a bunch of grenades? It was so weird.
I know. It's just, yeah. It is just. I mean, it was written by Charles Griffith, and you have to ask yourself, what the hell was he on when he wrote this? I mean, you know, it's just that. But in a sense, though, I think this is the reason why this movie is so cult, because it's not your standard creature feature. It goes down this weird path, which is just, I don't think I've ever seen before. Have we ever seen a creature feature where the giant creature, has an intelligence level where it decides it wants to conquer the planet? Not eat everyone on the planet, but conquer the planet.
With a French accent, mind you.
Yes.
So, now, I have to admit, when I very first started watching the movie, you know, they got the opening crawl, you know, the opening credits, and they have interesting art at the beginning. They're showing a lot of octopuses and random creatures that do not look like crabs. And I thought, oh, this might be one of those movies where you think you're only getting giant crabs, but maybe some other creatures come in. Because, all in the beginning, there's like octopuses and just weird creatures that do not look like crabs. And I'm like, oh, cool, maybe some other monsters will come by. Nope, it's strictly crabs for some reason.
Yes.
Don't know why the crabs were only affected by this giantism and electronic voice conduction and mind meld that they had going on.
And the other thing too is their biology, when explained, doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever. I mean, it is just total hogwash gobbledygook nonsense. It is just, yes.
It makes no sense. It's just, the very first kill in the movie, I was laughing because just the way they did it was funny. This guy falls overboard from a little rowboat, and, all the guys in the boats pull him up by his feet. When they pull him up, his head's off, and they're like, oh!
Yes.
And I'm just like, I don't know. It was the first kill in. I was already laughing. I'm like, this is great. But I was excited to see Russell Johnson, who many of you would recognize as the professor from Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
So he is in this. And he does give his life to prevent the giant crab from dominating Earth with its French accent. So he's very heroic in this.
Yes. I wonder if there was a bit of this thing in there. It's like the American perspective of we've got to stop these damn Frenchies or something. I don't know. But it's. I don't think any of this was done intentionally. The French accent was simply the last person eaten happened to be a French scientist. I don't think there's meant to be any weird thing about it. And I don't think... No. It's just that everybody talks about this movie, about the fact that the crab has a French accent. But I think that just happened by accident. I don't think it's meant to actually be...
Yeah, it's unintentionally funny. It's hilarious. That's the best part of when you're telling anybody about this movie. That's the first thing you told me about this movie. There's a giant crab with an accent. I'm like, okay, I have to watch it.
Yes.
You're just like, why does it have a French accent? And then within the realm of the movie, I want to say it makes sense, but it doesn't, because I don't know. I mean, why doesn't it have, like, I don't know, a crab accent when it speaks?
Well, I don't think if it spoke crab, no one would understand it. I mean, remember too, crabs don't actually have language. They don't speak. There's only actually one known species in the world that has language and speaks, which is humans, right?
Oh my God.
Although it is trying to believe that maybe, some species of dolphins and whales may have a primitive form of language, but we don't know that. That's just all conjecture.
And some primates are able to use sign language, so there is definitely an ability to communicate. So,
it's an ability to communicate. But primates, other than humans, still don't use language, even if they're using sign language.
Right.
All that they're doing is they're linking an action to a movement. They're not so like. The banana I like to eat, this symbol means banana. But in their mind, they're not thinking banana. They're not actually speaking the way a human does. I mean,
So our point again is that, okay, how the hell does does the crab have a French accent? How the hell does it speak at all? Because it conducts it over metal.
That's where it gets crazy. But as we said, the biology of this movie is totally made up. I mean, it's just totally
ridiculous.
made up.
Ridiculous.
Yes. And then they come up with the concept that basically because they say that because their generators or whatever are using DC, and apparently the crab is AC charged, so then they can hit it with electricity. Right?
Stupid.
Well, it was not just that. I mean, what about if they were using AC on the island? Not everybody actually uses direct current. Some people do actually use alternate current. Talk to any railway modeler in Europe.
No, but I mean the crab is AC and the people are what's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That was funny. Yes, it gives a whole new meaning to AC/DC, doesn't it? Definitely. For a movie from 1957, so movies in black and white, and I jokingly said the only thing missing was breasts because it's directed by Roger Corman. It does have, like I said, we have a decapitation, and also somebody loses their hand.
Yes.
Like a rock falls and like cuts his hand off his body, like separates his hand from his body. I'm like, dang, poor man's hand knocked off. So I was actually surprised to see that type of violence in a movie from 1957. You don't see that often. It's usually implied, it's usually off screen, but here we actually saw a body without a head, and we saw a man that passed out from the pain of having his hand severed from his body, and he walks around with a stump. I got air quotes, stump, for the rest of the movie.
Yes, well,
and then he gets eaten by the crab.
Yes. But would you like to hear something amazing, though, about this movie, Velvet?
Okay.
Cost $70,000 to make. Okay.
Wow.
Do you know what the box office return was for this film was?
What was it?
$1 million.
Wow, in 1957? That's humongous.
This movie was actually a success. This was actually a success. Now, it was also apparently, when it was distributed by Allied Artists, it was actually sold as a double feature. So when you got this film, you got another film. Like, you got two Roger Corman films together. And the movie that it was actually distributed with was Not of This Earth.
Which we have reviewed the 1980s remake of that film that used stock footage from other movies by Roger Corman.
Yes, so although that wasn't Roger Corman, because of course the whole premise of that movie was, of course, it was made on a bet. So it's which was basically that could the movie be remade for exactly the same amount of money. So it was, an interesting concept. It's like a film was actually made because of a bet. Yes.
That's hilarious. That is so funny. The crab in this movie. Well, first, before I even talk about the crab, I have to actually talk about. They have really lovely underwater cinematography in this movie, which even nowadays I feel like we don't actually see that type of cinematography. It's always CGI, or it's always, it's just not organic. And here we actually have the actors swimming in water with sea life. Obviously, they're probably not doing it right straight up in the sea. They're probably in an aquarium or something.
Oh, yeah, they're in a tank.
Domesticate sea life.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. It's very beautifully shot. It's really pretty the way they did it. And so if you love the underwater, swimming scenes from Creature of the Black Lagoon, you'll want to watch this movie just to see the underwater swimming scenes where they got their scuba gear on. There's all the fish and all the little sea creatures swimming around. It's very nicely done, which I didn't expect to see at all in this movie. So that was actually a visual treat. But the giant crab.
Yes, the giant crab. What did you think of the giant crab? What did you think of it?
Well, first of all, I have to say I saw a wire on the giant crab. And I'm like, I saw a wire. And it's like, you always got to play that game in old creature feature movies. You got to find the wire. So I saw a wire. So I got a point for that. But it looks pretty decent, actually, until you see its eyes.
Yes.
Yes.
Or its mouth.
Goofy looking eyes. Or its mouth. He had goofy eyes and mouth. And there's a funny where they managed to creep up on the giant crab because it's sleeping and it is snoring very loudly.
Yes, it snores. It actually snores.
And we have some 1950s speak that you don't hear nowadays. There's a scene where they're looking at a picture, they manage to take some pictures of the giant crab, and one of the females in the movie, the only female in the movie, says, "She's in a very delicate condition." This was 1950s speak for, "That crab is pregnant."
Yes, I know.
Very delicate condition. And so for half a second, I was like, oh my God, that'd be amazing if she gives birth to a bunch of little tiny crabs and they're all running around with little baby French accents. That would have been so funny. But no, it didn't get to that point. They killed it before that happened.
Well, the interesting thing, too, about it is that our woman in the movie is, what's her name? Martha. And she's meant to be a biologist, right? But here's the thing. This is so 1957, because it's like, she's meant to be one of the biologists, so, she's allowed a career. Woohoo! She's allowed a career, right? But while the men are off trying to fix radios and set traps, her job is to make dinner.
I was wondering about that. I was like, did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
She's like, I better fix us all something to eat while all the men are working. I'm like, wait, does she just like to cook and she's just being, or does she feel like she's obligated to cook for them because she is the female of the group?
No, it's the 50s. It's 1957
yes.
and women knew their place. Well, you know what I mean. You know what I mean by that. It was a different world. It was a different world where, unfortunately, Me Too hadn't quite caught on yet.
Wow, amazing.
It's but it is interesting though when you look at these films. It's like and please, when I say knew their place, I wasn't saying that's the way it should.
Oh, he is totally joking. Yeah, you're totally joking. We know this.
Yeah.
We know this.
The idea is that like if you look at a lot of these movies, they're often actually quite progressive in the sense that they give women roles, positions, jobs, and so forth that was kind of unusual at that particular time. But at the same time, they still want to make it very clear it's a man's world. Do you know? I mean, all of these movies are the same. You often have, like female scientists, but this female scientist will still need to be rescued by the male lead, and so it's interesting. All of these films, it's like they try to be progressive, but they still just don't quite get it.
Well said.
Yeah, but it's also. I mean, you look at sci-fi movies, probably from about the 1970s on. You'll get far more stronger females. Like even like in the military in the future in space, there'll be female soldiers and all this sort of stuff. And that's in the 70s. Then you'd have to wait until the late 80s, or early 90s before women sort of actually became equal. In the military, where they could actually do the same jobs and all this sort of stuff. So movies are often quite progressive, but they're still kind of quite backwards at the same time. It's like I remember there's this terrible movie about the first landing on the moon from the 1950s, where the main astronaut that goes up is a female, right? But but her boss threatens to spank her. For,
oh, man.
Yeah, so anyway, I think everyone knows what I'm trying to say, just very badly.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Yeah. You always have to keep in mind when you see these movies from the 50s that things have definitely changed.
Yes. Most
so try not
definitely.
to take it too personal. Don't get upset. But it is wonderful to have these little time capsule films of the social culture of the time documented, so we can see how we've progressed or how we have not.
Well, yeah, but I think it has to be like that because you know how like people sort of say, oh no, we can't have that, it's bad, because it was wrong back then, so we shouldn't try to push it, right? But I think we need to see it. Because if it was bad back then, we need to know it was bad back then and not rewrite history and say, wasn't everything wonderful? It's like, you get politicians who will often sort of say, we want to go back to the good old days. Well, at what point was the good old days? Slavery? When women didn't have rights? Where black people didn't have the same rights as white people? At what point do you think there was this perfection that you need to go back to? So, all of these things are an actual historical record of how we as a society are progressing, and so you can never ban them, stop them, or anything like that just because they're sexist. Or even, in my opinion, even if they're racist or even if they're homophobic, because people need to know what the past was like so they don't fall for this trap that, oh, it was better in the good old days. You know? I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I definitely relate to that because every once in a while when people get off on that rant, I'm kind of like, well, I'm grateful that I was born in 1980 since I'm a woman of color. I think 1980 was a good time for me to be born. So, anything before that, I might not, view so favorably. Also because I wasn't alive, but...
Yes, yeah. But
according to history, now is probably a pretty good time for me to be alive.
well, technically, right now is actually the best time to be alive in human history, because we have the greatest advances in medicine. We have the greatest
entertainment, technology,
but even just things like human support for each other is now greater than it's ever been. Wars are actually,
we don't have fucking gladiator games every Sunday on the corner.
We also have societies where if you get ill, society will help you. Before you just got bloody kicked out of the village to die. You know, we
don't want you to get everybody else sick.
Yeah,
like, oh god.
Now we have wars are actually at their lowest point in human history right now. A lot of people don't believe that, but it's true. There's less war now than there's ever been in human history.
Wow.
You know, it's actually a good time to be alive. People should stop complaining so much.
Definitely. I have to agree 100%.
Although, when I say that, though, I still believe in the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter. There's still a lot of way to go. I'm not saying it's perfect.
Definitely.
I'm just saying it's better than it was. I'm not saying it's perfect.
Definitely.
There's still a long way to go, obviously. Yeah, still a long way. Because I am a big supporter of both those movements, so...
Right on.
Yeah.
And for me, it goes without saying, so...
Yes. Yes.
So, 100%.
Yeah.
Attack of the Crab Monster. So, not too politically incorrect by today's standards, because we have seen worse. We have seen movies where we're like, God damn, it sucks to be a woman in this movie.
Yeah.
So, in this one, the worst thing that happens is that guys pretty much expect her to cook a meal. She seems happy to do it. She doesn't seem oppressed, because at the same time, she is a career woman, but it is weird that they're kind of treating her like a glorified personal assistant. But... like I said, 1957, so we forgive it.
Yes, that's exactly
because
right.
It's a ridiculous movie anyway, so this is not a movie that is meant to be taken serious whatsoever.
No.
It's pure entertainment, definitely a popcorn movie, and it's one to add to your list of, well, glad I saw that one. So you get friends, like, hey, I saw this movie where there was a giant crab bent on world domination, and it had a French accent when it spoke. Yes, it spoke.
And spoke through metal.
So I guess they killed it. I mean, this movie's from 1957, so we're definitely going to have spoilers. So I guess they killed the giant crab by electrocuting it.
Yes.
It was kind of weird. It was kind of like off screen. It was one of those endings which was super fast all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, the professor from Gilligan Island, I guess he falls to his death from this tower, but he manages to knock the tower onto the giant crab, and it electrocutes the crab, and then it goes, the end, and you're like, wow, that was fast. Okay.
It was a very fast ending, I have to admit. There was no closure at all.
I know. I was like, oh, okay. Because they kept saying, like, throughout the movie, too, like, shit was disappearing. Like, you know, the mountain, there was a mountain there this morning, now that's gone, and stuff was just, like, crumbling and falling into the ocean. And so all of a sudden, so you're kind of like, people are like, oh, we're not going to get rescued because, you know, they're going to assume that the captain's here and he's staying here, so they're not going to be looking for us. And it's like, all of a sudden, just the end. And you're like, wait, are they all going to be living on the island now? Or are they getting off the island?
Well,
we will never know.
I also want to know if they're meant to be land crabs, when they destroy the island and all the people on it, how do they intend to get to where the people are to take over the world? Like, how are they going to actually get there? I don't think these crabs had thought that far ahead. You know?
Oh man, this movie is very flawed.
I mean, the Pacific Ocean is, I think it is the biggest ocean there is. I think the Pacific.
Yeah, I think so.
So how were they going to get anywhere, right?
Oh, wow. Okay, that was amazing. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I was like, yeah.
Because and before anybody says, "Oh, they're crabs," they just crawl across the ocean's floor. They're sea crabs. They're not land crabs. So, so I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Who knows?
Oh yeah, this movie brings up very many questions.
Yeah, but when have you ever found a Roger Corman movie that actually made any sense?
No, because I was just thinking about Not of This Earth, and I'm like, wait, they were like vampire aliens, and all of a sudden the lady rang the doorbell, and she's like, "I'm your strippergram," and then she died, and I'm like, wait, this movie makes no sense. There's just a lot of nudity and blood, and
although remember
space portals.
Although you must remember that is a Jim Wynorski film. That's not actually.
That's right.
Roger
I keep forgetting
Corman
that.
film.
I keep forgetting
because
that.
the Roger Corman Not of This Earth did have sexy women in it and stuff, but it wasn't
right. But it was
there was
from
no
the
nudity
50s.
or it was from
exactly.
So, it was when
I keep
because
forgetting that Jim Wynorski remade it. I keep thinking. Roger Corman remade his own movie. Okay, I keep getting confused. It's been a minute. It's been a while since
yes, because Jim Wynorski and of course Roger Corman were great friends, and of course that's when this bet was made that Jim Wynorski said he could remake Not of This Earth for exactly the same amount of money that Roger Corman spent on the original, adjusted for inflation. It was adjusted for inflation, but that's the reason why. The sets are so cheap, they're reused. Why you will see suddenly a wall that was in a bedroom 1 minute is now suddenly in the kitchen because they were just using like 7 walls, which were just being turned into different rooms all the time. And that's also the reason why he used stock footage from so many other Roger Corman movies because it was just
amazing.
Cheaper. They didn't even Jim Wynorski didn't even bother to write the script properly. He took the original script and just changed some lines of dialogue to accept the nudity. Otherwise, the movie is almost line for line the original script.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Man, imagine if they remade, I could totally see Sci-Fi remaking this movie, Attack of the Crab Monsters. I could totally see them giving it the sci-fi treatment.
Oh yeah,
being just as ludicrous. Amazing
they
CGI.
Yeah, amazing CGI. Well, it's kind of interesting. CGI. I mean, sci-fi is just such a fascinating company. I mean, it's like the idea that they make some amazing television shows, but then they also make such shitty films. It's
but it's become their brand too. Like now, they do it intentionally. Like any sci-fi goofy B movie. They make it as B movie as they can because they know there's a genre for that. Like people like us, we love to see movies like that. We're entertained by how stupid they are.
Well, that was really the whole idea, wasn't it? I mean, it's like when you had originally the theaters. That were the home for the B movies. Then the drive-in, well, at least not in every country, but countries that had the drive-in, and of course. The B movie is kind of an American genre in that sense. So then you had the drive-ins, but then when the drive-ins died, what happened to B movies? Video cassettes were able to birth it a bit, but then it just really kind of died out, the whole concept. But then cable television suddenly made this genre available again, and that was and that's why I love sci-fi so much. The fact that without them. We wouldn't have this plethora of B-grade movies again, which is, I think, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
I love it. No, definitely. And it's brought so many people together.
Oh, it has. I mean, Sharknado parties are held around the world every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right.
So anything else
to
say?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much said it.
All right. How are we going to rate it?
Okay. Now, this is one of those movies that, although I'm having a blast talking about it, I have to admit, watching it, I was a little bored. Dragged a little bit.
Yeah.
I did laugh occasionally because of the effects and the giant crab and, people getting their head knocked off, their hand knocked off. But It's still watchable, still worth checking out. Pacing is a little slow at times, but possible 5 Eric Roberts. I'm going to go ahead and give this 3 Erics.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to be quite as good. I think it is typically 50s creature feature where it does take a very long time to get going. And the dialogue then doesn't keep you engaged because it's so cheesy and simple. So I'm going to give it a 2. Also, the other thing, too, is the concept of this crab that wants world domination. I didn't know whether to give it 5 just for the concept of that. But then it's such a ludicrous idea that, no, I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
I'll give it a 2.
Fair enough.
All right. Okay.
Right on.
All right. Well, we'll just take another quick break, and then we'll be back with our final movie, which is rather different.
В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно. В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно. Не напрасно так долго дома я собиралась и надела на счастье это синее платье. В этот вечер я знала, что судьба уж подкралась и тебя угадала в толпе с первого взгляда. С первого взгляда. В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно. В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно. До упаду. Жадно. Не напрасно так долго ни в кого не влюблялась и хранила на счастье это синее платье. В этот вечер все чары я пустила, надела и тебя одолела. Любовь с первого взгляда. Самое сердце. Наших тел союз, безусловно прекрасен, и счастливый конец этой истории ясен. В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно. В этом синем платье можно танцевать ночи напролет. До упаду эти сладкие губы можно целовать ночи напролет. Жадно.
Well, that was Nikita from the Ukraine. Yes, gone all very Eastern European today with the music. I didn't have much... I honestly didn't have a lot of time to do it today, so I just honestly just picked a couple of tracks that were just sitting there. So a bit Eastern European. But oh my God, the band Nikita from Ukraine. Whew! If you're a red-blooded male, holy crap. Holy crap, you need a cold shower after watching one of their video clips. Anyway.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, it's a bit like that, Velvet, I'll tell you what. Ooh.
Really?
Oh, yeah. All right. Or if you're a woman so inclined, you'll need a cold shower as well. Now, our final movie for the podcast is something which I got myself into accidentally. I thought it was going to be something very different to what it actually turned out to be. I'd heard about this movie and I'd never actually seen it. I'd heard that it was basically about a train filled with the plague. And I thought, oh, wow, that sounds really, really cool. Because I remember we did that South Korean movie about zombies on a train a little while ago. And I thought...
Yes.
And I
that
thought,
was something.
yeah, and I thought, oh, this sounds like it could be really cool, like piece of crap from the 1970s. Oh, this will be really, really interesting. Well, as I started watching it and started watching the titles and everything, I realised we were going to be in for something very, very different. But just before I actually explain to you what this movie is about, I'm going to read out just some of the cast members. Sophia Loren, Richard Harris, Burt Lancaster, Martin Sheen, Ava Gardner, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson. But anyway, O.J. Simpson. And a whole heap of others. It was a huge multi-star cast. And I suddenly realised, holy crap, what we've actually walked into is a 1970s disaster film, like Towering Inferno or Earthquake or something along those lines. And it wasn't what I was expecting at all. So anyway, this is what we've got. So to give you a rundown of this movie. So basically, it starts off in Switzerland. And it is all basically set in Switzerland. There is the World Health Organization and some terrorists or eco-terrorists, or I don't really know exactly what they are, break into their big place in Geneva. And while they're breaking in there, they accidentally get infected by pneumonic plague.
Yeah, some type
plague.
of pneumonic plague.
Okay. So anyway, one of them dies, and the other one escapes, and he manages to get himself onto the train that they were going to use as their escape route. And anyway, so we now have this man infected with pneumonic plague on this train, which is headed to Paris. So anyway, the US military, of course, get involved because we find out that this is pneumonic plague which has been secretly developed in Switzerland without the Swiss government knowing, and in total violation, of course, of all laws that we have around the world. So, of course, the American government want to hide the fact that this has happened. But they now know they've got a train with 1,000 people and an infected person on that train who is probably infecting everybody else on the train. And so, of course, they've got to make this go away. Now, the idea is that they're going to send the train off to Poland, which makes no sense whatsoever, because this film is from 1976, height of the Cold War, and Poland was a Warsaw Pact country. So how the fuck it was going to end up in Poland, I do not know. But anyway, that's the story. And they have to send them across an old deserted railway line to get into Poland, which is called the Cassandra Crossing, hence the name of the movie, which is an old rickety bridge which was abandoned in 1949, I think, according to the story. Now, they believe that, of course, the train will not get across the bridge will collapse, kill everybody, but the American government is happy with that because it'll kill everybody and that's what they want, or they can get them into Poland and then they can just make the whole situation go away. But our heroes on the train, led by Richard Harris, who is meant to be a doctor, plays Dr. Jonathan Chamberlain, will try to stop them because he realizes there's a cure for this disease, and so he wants to stop the train. But can he stop the train in time before the American government kills everybody, or won't he stop the train in time?
That's a good question.
And that's our story, basically. It was not the film I was expecting, I'll tell you that much. What did you think, Velvet?
Also not the film I was expecting. I wasn't 100% sure what I was getting into watching this one, and honestly, disaster films are just not my favorite genre, and I love zombies rain. I like snakes on a plane, but I don't like the whole bubonic or pneumonic virus on a train. That instantly I was just not liking the concept. But I did perk up when I realized how many stars are in this movie. That was really surprising, kind of traumatizing to see O.J. Simpson playing a priest on the train. and the whole time he's making these snide comments, girl, and you just kind of go, you know what? He is not even acting in that role. He's just being himself.
Pretty much,
is kind of scary.
I know.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but Sophia Loren looks beautiful. I mean, Martin Sheen is in this, like you said. I mean, there's so many stars in this. David Gardner, Burt Lancaster. It was really surprising to see how many stars are in this movie. But I have to admit, the scene that got me was in half an hour into the movie. We've got our sick terrorist on the train, and he coughs right into a bowl of rice. And then a couple minutes later, you see the steward in the train passing out food. Would you like rice with that? And you're like, no,
don't eat the rice. I know.
Oh, it just made me cringe. So there's a lot of cringe-worthy moments going on in this. And then one of the first passengers to get sick with the virus, or I should say the plague, is a dog. And I'm like, no, the dog is sick. And they have like foam coming out of the dog's mouth, and he just looks so miserable. But the dog survives, people. I'll spoil that for you. The dog survives.
The dog survives.
The dog survives. It was interesting that our terrorists were of Swedish descent. That was an interesting nationality for our villains. Not something you hear often in movies nowadays. Terrorists are usually not identified as coming from Sweden, so that was interesting.
Although I think they're meant to be eco-terrorists, though. They're not.
That actually makes sense.
Yeah,
that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
But I don't like the whole plague on a train thing. So I was kind of like, oh God, I don't know about this movie.
It is interesting though, because this movie actually does play with some other very interesting ideas. For instance, it sort of has a subplot, well, not a subplot or so, but it's almost to a degree also telling the story of the Holocaust in a weird way, because one of our stars on this train is meant to be a Pole. Well, he's Swiss now, but he was born in Poland, and he's meant to be a death camp survivor, a Holocaust survivor. And when they say that, the train's going to be taken off to Poland and you'll all be put into this, place, to get better. And he says, oh, no, it's a medical facility. And our, Jewish survivor basically turns around to Richard Harris and says, oh, is that what they call them these days?
Oh, God.
But it does also play with that idea that you've got the American government is, what they're trying to do is they've got these, if you look at the story a little bit differently, they've got these people that they don't know what to do with. So what do? They send them off to a camp, but then they realize maybe it's just easier to kill them.
Oh, God.
Now, if you think about that, with the fact that we've got a Holocaust survivor who's fighting this whole idea, it is kind of in a weird way, a bit of a narrative of the Holocaust, which is very interesting. It's an interesting idea in itself. But yeah. That's just
that's pretty intense.
something. Yeah,
There's definitely some parallels in there. Yeah, that's pretty intense, and it has an interesting question in the film of how do you quarantine 1,000 people on a train? Keep that train fucking moving was their plan for a minute there, and it is pretty disturbing when people are trying to escape the train when it actually makes a rare stop, and you have all the people in the biohazard suits with like machine guns, and they're like basically shoot to kill if somebody tries to escape, and I'm like, ugh. I don't know. For some reason, these disaster films, I'm just always like, oh God, whether it's the planet going to get by a rogue planet or an asteroid, or the weather just decides to just go crazy and kill everybody, or now we got a disease that is killing people and the government's going to kill the people to keep the disease from, it stresses me out.
Yeah, well,
movie.
Well, so as I said, I didn't know at the time it was going to end up being that. I mean, I thought it was going to be something a little bit different.
Like, Warren hates me. He's triggering me again.
It wasn't.
It
wasn't done intentionally. Believe me, it wasn't done intentionally. But there are some things about this movie. One of the things too, I have to admit, I loved about it is the train. There is so many train shots. If you're a train fan, and you love the Swiss railways. You know, which, running through mountains and tunnels and, the stuff that makes the Swiss railway system just so, just beautiful to look at. The shots of the train running through Switzerland are absolutely amazing. But there's a few slight issues that I want to bring up with this movie just very quickly. And that is that they try to get, when they find the infected, host one, right, the infected person, they try to get him off the train. They won't stop the train, but they're going to fly a helicopter above it, lower a winch, and they're going to get him off the train while it's moving. There's a slight problem here. Okay, it's an electric train. How does the freaking helicopter get the thing down and not hit all the wires above the train? Right? Not really thought out by the script writers. So that's number one. Number two, this all happens in Switzerland, okay?
Right.
How the fuck... Switzerland, the most neutral country in the world, so neutral it will defend its borders against anyone. Even if they're great friends of Switzerland, they will still defend their borders against their friends to maintain 100% neutrality. Okay, so you've got all of that.
Right.
So why do they let the US Army into Switzerland to take control of it? That doesn't make any sense at all. It just wouldn't happen.
Oh,
but anyway.
My God. Yeah, This movie is definitely flawed, I must admit. Definitely flawed.
Yeah.
What was actress? Definitely not Sophia Loren, but there is this cougar on
Oh my God, that's Ava Gardner.
Ava Gardner, thank you. For some reason her name escaped me. Yeah, looking very beautiful, I must admit, aged very nicely in this movie. But oh my God, she is such a cougar. She has a younger boyfriend, and it's honestly a little uncomfortable when she's just like, I want you, baby boy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no. No, I don't want to see this part of the movie. So please don't have a graphic sex scene. They did not, but
no.
they got close, and I was like, oh, just enough for that uncomfortable tension. And obviously, he's a little sugar baby. She's a rich older woman, and he's just a young, good-looking guy, and he's young, dumb, and full of cum, and that's the way she likes him. And it's like, oh God.
Oh yes.
It was just.
Although he will turn out to be a drug trafficker in the end, so
that was surprising. Yeah, and he even threatens her, and she forgives him pretty fucking quickly because she was like, once he got the gun down, she was like, it's okay, he can just come with me. I'm like, dang, he was getting ready to blow your head off, lady. And I love how one of the people are like saying something about heroin, like he was smuggling heroin or something, and she's just like, Ava Gardner's like, heroin? How common.
I know. It's like, it wasn't a designer drug. Oh, how common. Oh, I know.
Oh, my God.
But the interesting thing, too, is that Ava Gardner is meant to be I don't even know why this was important in the movie, but they wrote it in. She's meant to be the wife of the world's largest arms dealer, right?
Oh, and that's right. She mentions that.
I don't even know why that was important. I wonder whether there was other bits in this script which were cut out and that just got left in. You know, because it doesn't. Why? Why is that even important? I don't know. But there is an interesting scene where the military are now on the train, controlling the train, and she looks at one of the soldiers and says, "Oh, my husband sells those. He'll be very glad to hear that you're using them." When she looks at his gun.
Yeah, that was a strange part. I remember that. I was like, okay, that was kind of weird.
You know,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think so. It does seem like there must have been some scenes that got cut out or something that was relevant to. I don't know. Or maybe it was just to set up that joke. I don't know.
Well, the ending of the film too is it's very strange because there's not really an ending. It's like, to me, I reckon this film was almost set up for a sequel because the movie doesn't really end properly. The other thing too is that there's you're sort of wondering this movie where there was a bit of this sort of like, the idea of, oh, America is great, let the American military sort everything out and it'll be good. But I don't think that was the case at all. I think this movie is actually kind of very anti-military in a sense because the military in this film is portrayed as being evil, not as being good. They're not trying to help the people, they're trying to kill the people. So the military is not really portrayed very well at all. And there's a classic line in it where the main military guy who's controlling it all, who's played by Burt Lancaster, is talking to the Swiss doctor, and who's meant to be assisting him, sort of thing. And at the very end, and he says, "Please don't think of me as a monster." For what's happened. And she says, "No, I don't see you as a monster. I just basically see you as someone who allows monstrous things to happen." And she says that in a way is actually worse. And then she goes to turn away, and then Burt Lancaster says to her, "You are a brilliant doctor. Don't ever change your profession." Like, in other words, he's saying to her, don't do what I did and ever become a soldier. So it's a really, but then again, in a sense, now today that might be a bit politically incorrect because there's kind of a love affair with the military, which you would say at the moment around the world, right? Post 9/11, I think the world changed, to where the military is now sort of beloved. But in 1976, post South Vietnam, the military was not respected. The military was viewed as being something kind of quite evil and bad, not something that we now view as being sort of good and protective. It was seen as evil and doing bad shit. So this movie, in a way, is just portraying the ideals of 1976, which are obviously, if you're going to make this movie now, you would never kind of make the military that evil, I don't think.
No, definitely not. That's true. Or if there is an evil military, there are like a few within the military who are the good guys, and they're going to overthrow the evil military. Like there's always good guys. It can't just be, can't just be everybody in the military is bad. Yeah, there's always that. We're going to make things good, and we're going to be heroes, and we're going to save everybody. And
that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. But another thing too about this movie is obviously has a lot of respect. It wasn't quite, as I said, it was not what I thought it was going to be. On IMDb, this movie has an 89% approval rate.
Wow.
That's bloody high.
Pretty high. Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty high. I don't know. I think, again, it's just not my genre. So I'm just oh no. But I do like how the ending, for me, like it goes two ways. For you say, oh, it's like it was set up for a sequel. For me, it almost kind of sounds like it's a conspiracy. Like they're not done yet. This is going on. It's not completely contained. It's a conspiracy. We're not going to tell anybody about this, and everybody's just going to die of unfortunate circumstances. We have to make it look like an accident. Can't let people know that this happened. So, but that's just me, because that's what I do to make movies more interesting, is think of all these little stories that have not happened in the movie.
Yes. So it's an interesting film. I mean, I think the thing is, yes, if you're not into that 1970s disaster genre, then it's probably not going to be your cup of tea. If you don't mind that 70s, but let's face it, 1970s disaster movies were the bee's knees, weren't they? They were everything. I mean, all the big blockbuster movies were disaster movies, you know.
Yes.
You know, it was obsessed over in the 1970s. So if you like that sort of thing, I think then you'll like this movie. Just one thing I will say about it is the storyline is more interesting and it's better acted than actually something like Earthquake, you know, or something like that. Maybe not as interesting as Tower and Inferno, which but it's you know, it's still up there. It's still up there. But if you're, you know, but like Velvet, don't really like disaster movies, then you're not going to like it anyway. So,
like, even though I don't really like disaster movies, I do like the concept of this film. Like, how do you keep 1,000 people in quarantine? Oh, and by the way, these people happen to be on a train. That is a very exciting premise, and maybe it's just too exciting for me. But I do like the concept. I mean, like, if I were, you know, bankrolling films and somebody came to me with that kind of script, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that needs to be made. Let's do that. So it is a very cool idea.
Yes. It's I still want to try to understand this idea of why Poland, a Warsaw Pact country in 1976, was going to allow these people to cross the Cold War barrier and come to that. I still cannot understand how that was.
No. Yeah,
you know?
I didn't get that either. And honestly, I mean, this may be just a casting error. Maybe this is just the way it appeared to me. But it seemed like, okay, this is supposed to be Europe, but it seemed to me like the majority of the people on this train were American. And I'm kind of like, it didn't seem like a very international crowd. It seemed like there were a couple of people from countries that were not America, but it seemed like the majority of the passengers seemed American to me. And I was just like, I don't know.
It's still an
I don't know.
It's still an American film, remember? So
fair enough. Fair enough.
Although there was a number of international actors in it, but the main big characters were all American. Although obviously, you know, Sophia Loren and Richard Harris are obviously not not American, but and they, to a degree, I suppose, share lead billing really with Burt Lancaster. So you'd really would say you've got one Italian, one Brit, and one American. So in the big lead three, but although Richard Harris is not a Brit, sorry, he's Irish. Sorry about that. But so you just often think, anyway, so I should never do that. He is Irish. But I think the Poland thing that we're getting to goes back to that Holocaust concept of taking the people out. So the whole idea is you had the free West, you know, like Germany, you know, France, Britain, Italy, all that sort of stuff. And then you had the evil East, you know, of the Warsaw Pact. And so they were going to take them out. They were going to take them out of their, you know, part of the world and send them off somewhere else. And to me, that's the Holocaust. You know, it's we're going to get rid of these people. We're going to send them away. So I think that's maybe why they chose Poland. It was just their way of trying to reinforce this underlining story that was going on, or a bit of storytelling, I suppose, that was, you know, maybe going on. I was just going to quickly tell you, have you ever heard the, I think, hilarious story of how Richard Harris became an actor?
I do not know the story.
I saw this once on an old episode of Michael Parkinson, who was interviewing Richard Harris, and he was telling the story of how he became an actor. And apparently he was a young man, and he was working for his father's business. And within one of his jobs was he had to try to drive the truck from point A to point B or whatever, okay, to deliver this stuff. And he said he was a young, pretty rebellious young guy and all this sort of stuff. Didn't listen to anybody, wouldn't take advice from anybody, all this sort of stuff. Kind of, he never changed his whole life, did he really? But anyway, so he was in the truck. He had to drive the truck off somewhere. So he's driving along, not paying any attention, couldn't care less, just being his rebellious self. And there was a low bridge, and he didn't bother to read the sign "low bridge." Who cares? I'm Richard Harris. I'm so cool. And he drove under it, and the truck jammed under the bridge. Right? It wouldn't.
Oh my god!
It couldn't get out. It was jammed. So he said he abandoned the truck, went into town, and caught the next ferry to England. He didn't even tell he just left. He abandoned the truck and just ran off and caught the ferry to England. And he went off. What am I going to do? I'll be an actor. And yeah,
wow.
That is
a rambling
hilarious.
Man. That is no plan in sight. Just spur of the moment, living by the seat of his pants. Good for him. You only live once, as we've said earlier in this episode. Must be the reoccurring theme of the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That is wild.
Absolutely hilarious. So one thing that was amazing too, 1976, how young Martin Sheen looked.
Oh my God. He's barely recognizable, to be honest.
Yeah. And
he's so young, you barely recognize him. You're like, oh my God, that is him. He's so young.
And
he's a sugar baby.
Yes, I know. And the only thing I have to admit I was a bit, was now we look back at hindsight, was of course, O.J. Simpson is, as we said before, one of the stars. And it was, for me, it was like...
so many movies. Oh God, I know.
It's like, we've talked about this before, watching movies with people who have turned out to be rather horrible people in real life.
Right.
Or people in this case who have committed horrendous crimes. And it's hard. I've got to admit, it's difficult to watch, now looking back and you see there O.J. Simpson playing the hero, knowing what the man did. It's pretty... Well, actually, he was found not guilty, wasn't he? So, but,
okay. Yeah, we'll go with that story.
Well, no. Look, I think, Velvet, I think you and I are in agreement. The guy was guilty as sin,
definitely.
okay? The guy was guilty as sin. He killed his wife and the other guy. There's no doubt about it. But, however, he was found not guilty. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But he's guilty as sin. Oh, God, absolutely.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And now all the interviews they've come out with where he's like, if I did it, theoretically, and you're like, oh, God.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, we could do a whole show about that if this was the conspiracy, because that would be a riveting episode, I must say.
Yes, well, I still remember some great wit once sort of saying when, after the trial, when O.J. Simpson came out and he said he would not rest until he tracked down the real killer. And some great wit said, well, obviously the real killer must live on a golf course.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Anyway.
And if you look at the poster for Cassandra Crossing for this movie that we're reviewing, they have some of the major stars, just their likenesses painted poster. In the bottom right, we have O.J. Simpson. He looks so much like one of his pictures from when he was actually standing trial for the murder of his wife.
Yes.
That's what the picture actually looks like. I'm like, wow, it's like it's telling the future. Anyways, it's weird. Well,
Yeah, I know. But the other amazing thing, too, about the poster art, you mentioned the poster art, this movie is set in Switzerland, and it's on a Swiss train, and it is really filmed, in Switzerland with the help of the Swiss railways. So they really are on a Swiss train, all the shots are of a Swiss train. But the poster art, for some reason, they put on an I'm, you know.
Oh, inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
I like the German translation of this movie. They called it Treffpunkt Todesbrücke, meeting point, death.
So what was that? You just broke up there. Sorry, your microphone just broke
Oh, I
a bit.
apologize. There we go. I apologize. So the German translation for this film is Treffpunkt Todesbrücke, or in English, meeting point, death bridge.
Oh.
Fantastic. Or death track. There you go. Death track.
Death
That
track.
sounds better.
Okay.
So, there you
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love it.
But it is, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, they did a lot of things right, even though they got a lot of things wrong. I mean, like, for instance, when the train stops at Basel to be sealed, you know, totally sealed, all the announcements are coming across in German, French, and Italian.
Yes.
Right? So that's exactly right. They're in Basel, of course. It's going to be, you know, in Swiss, which, of course, Swiss is 3 languages.
Yes.
It's German, Italian, or French. So that
Right.
was... So that was clever. I mean, they thought about that stuff, but the problem is they've got that which is kind of totally accurate, and then standing around the train, they've got American soldiers, which is just so stupid.
The inconsistencies, the goofs,
Yeah, I know.
as we like
So,
to call them.
Yeah, anyway. So have we got anything else to say about the Cassandra
I've said all I
Crossing?
can say. I've said all I can say.
All right. So how do we want to rate it then? How do we want to wrap it up?
Oh, man, not my favorite genre, as I said. So, just out of my bias, out of a possible 5 Eric Roberts, I'm going to give this 3 Erics.
I'm going to go a bit higher, actually. See, I don't mind a disaster movie, although I don't intentionally try to push them onto Velvet. If I really wanted to push movies onto Velvet she hated, I'd be pushing all these rom-coms down Velvet, you know. Which,
Oh, God,
so,
I would die.
you know, so in this case,
Although we do have to do a rom-com episode event.
I think we do just to do it once, just to do it once, sort of thing. But so it was quite unintentional. I didn't actually realise this was going to be what it was. But but I don't mind a disaster movie myself. So I'll give it 4. I think it wasn't bad. Yeah, there's some faults with it, but generally speaking, those faults probably would not be picked up by your average watcher of this movie. They, you know,
Right.
So I actually think as long as you like the genre, I think you'll like it. So I'm going to give it 4. But if you don't like the genre, then just stay away from it.
Well said.
Yes, yes. So that, I think, is basically a wrap.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we've got some changes coming up in the near future, but we'll keep you guys posted about what those are going to be. In the meantime, feel free to follow us on our social media on Twitter at Cult Movie Show. Feel free to tweet any movies you want to see or hear us review, especially anything that's older or weird or funny or a B movie, anything. If you have a independent film or short film that you'd like us to review, feel free to tweet us. You can also direct message us at Cult Movie Show on Twitter. You can also email us, cultmovieshow@gmail.com. All right, Warren, take it away.
I think that's everything. I think you covered everything, Velvet. So we'll be back. Now I'm not 100% sure whether we'll be back next week or the week after. Actually, we don't have a quick chat once we're off the air, but we're going to try for one next week because I've got a cunning plan. It's so
All
cunning
right.
you could shave a weasel and call it a fox, something like that. I don't know what it. I don't know. It was to dress up a weasel and call it a fox.
That was a good one.
I don't know. That's it's a Ben Elton line said by Rowan Atkinson. So anyway, so we're not exactly sure how it's all going to play out. So if we're not around for a week or so or something like that, don't be too concerned. We haven't gone. We're just having to make a few changes in timings and things like that. Okay, so
Right.
just to let people know. I think that's it.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
on.
absolutely.
All right, until
All
next
right.
week then.
Yes. So we will leave you, as always, with Alana Evans and Perfect. So cheers, guys, and thanks for listening.
All right, take care.